is The Spot, a BYU-Idaho radio production where we talk about what you're talking about at BYU-Idaho. Today's hosts are me, Savannah Bewley,
Hayden Hahn,
Nathan Andersen,
and I'm Colton Scholl.
The views and opinions of this podcast are not that of BYU-Idaho Radio or the university and are solely the opinions of the hosts. Today, we're talking about our favorite movies and TV. Of course, I can talk about that for hours, and all of us are communication students, so I think all of us could talk about it for hours.
I guess we can try. I mean, we can just keep going, guys.
Just
Let's
keep
just
going.
go for it.
Start listing.
Just all day, all Monday.
Every movie ever.
Some
4
say.
hours worth of content here.
Yeah.
Start of the next semester, they were still listing
Still
movies.
going.
So we're talking a little bit about our favorite movies here at the first bit, or favorite shows. And that's really hard for me because I have like a whole list of favorite movies. But like the first favorite movie I ever had, which I actually mentioned last week, is Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh.
Love that movie so much. And I just love Tim Burton. He is just amazing. So that one I have to mention. And I also really like, I really follow different directors, right? So like James Cameron is one of my favorites. So I love Titanic. I love both of the Avatar movies. They're just amazing. He obviously spends so much time filming them. So I really enjoy them. But I don't know about you guys. What are your guys' favorites?
Yeah, I was looking at like trying to figure out what movie, because like you said, it's so difficult to choose one like a series or anything like that. I could easily say like The Office to be simple, I guess, because I love The Office.
The Office is great.
For movies, I feel like it's so easy to also say like Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, because that's like what I grew up with.
Yes.
How did I even think of that one?
Well, I just barely remembered it because I was trying to single out like one movie that was so good, which I decided on. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Secondhand Lions. It's
so
my
good.
gosh.
Right?
I love that
Isn't
movie.
it such a good
movie is
movie? It's kind of
stellar.
underrated.
It
and
is.
I love it. It's like I remember watching it all the time. Gave me such good vibes. The little kid's from Sixth Sense, right? I think it's like kid,
I
but
think it is.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, he's like on the ranch or like on his great uncle's like property, and they're secretly super rich, and his mom is kind of greedy and
I
wants him to
remember
find
this
that.
So
movie.
good.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
It's super good.
It's so
I love the
good.
storytelling, and they go back in time and flashbacks of like the great uncles when they were younger and stuff. So I love it, and it's a cool soundtrack. I don't know, good story, everything. I love it.
So good.
When
What about you, Nathan?
Yeah, when I was thinking about the question, I was going back to like childhood. I was like, when did I actually care about like a movie first? And I went all the way back to like Lady and the Tramp and
Ooh,
Fox
yeah.
and the Hound and 101 Dalmatians. When I was a little kid,
Yeah.
I was like all about those movies. But as I got older, the first movie I think that when I reached adolescence that really like piqued my interest was like Tron, the second one, because it was like,
Yes.
I mean, and looking back at it now, it's like it's okay movie. But that was the first movie that was like. My brain was just exploded. I was like, "This is possible. You can make this kind of story. It's
Right.
amazing." Yeah, that was the first thing I think I ever like experienced. But later on in life, of course, like, I mean, with TV shows especially, I mean, I was all about cartoons growing up, and now like that I'm older, it's like drama's where it's at. I don't know why humans love drama so much, but this
So
is a formula that works just so well for like we can't get enough of it. We love it.
Oh, yeah. It was almost, at the end, I'll ask some questions, but it was almost one of the questions was, what is the most popular form of media in movies and in TV? And I cut the question because it's just both drama.
I
and I'm
know!
just
Super obvious drama.
yeah.
Everyone loves it.
It's too good. It's
Absolutely.
like, yeah, I don't know. We're all addicted to it. I'm pretty sure at
Oh,
this
yeah.
point.
Oh, yeah.
So
Why
good.
social
Oh, yeah.
media is so like in our lives is drama. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's one show, it's a telenovela on Netflix, and I love it. It's called Jane the Virgin, and if you
I
haven't
love
heard of
Jane the
it,
Virgin.
it is so, so good. So definitely check it out, but it is very much drama.
It's like an
That's-
Americanized telenovela too, because we
Yeah.
don't really have telenovelas. I mean, I know we do, but like not huge. And that was like put it on the stage, and then it was
So
super
good.
fun and like over dramatized everything. But I
Oh,
love
that's
it.
cool.
It's also self-aware of itself, too, which is even more hilarious because sometimes it'll be like, yes, this is a typical telenovela trope. And they just point it out. It's absolutely great. Such a good show.
That's
Colton, do you have any favorites?
So my problem is the same with you, where it's like I have a ton of movies that could be my favorite. I have it pinned down to like by genre. I have my favorite for what a comedy is and what a favorite for an inspirational movie is. But the first movie that I ever pinned down as my favorite movie is super pretentious because it's the black and white film 12 Angry Men.
Oh,
And
that's
I
a great
love
one.
that movie so much because it takes place in 2 rooms.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
It has a basically 12-person cast because it's about a jury, and it takes you on an adventure and it explores things about how weird the jury system is because people don't care because they're being pulled away from their lives. And I feel like if I went back and watched it, maybe I'd be a little bit bored today. But as a child, which is weird because as a child, you're supposed to have a shorter attention span. But when I watched that for the first time, it was the first movie that I had seen that shocked me with every new development of how he figured out how to use the evidence to recreate the scene and figure out how this person could not have committed the crime. And it was,
I was not thinking like that when I was a kid. I'm being honest with you.
Yeah.
I was way smarter as a kid than I am now.
Oh gosh.
That's actually interesting because my mom kind of instilled into me and the rest of my siblings, like growing up, this sense of like what we do when we watch any media is like, what are they trying to teach you? What message are they trying to give you?
Oh yeah, that's a great way to consume media.
Yeah, because every media, it's not always direct. Regardless of the formula, I actually wrote this down. It's like we all have like our favorite formulas of like genres, right? And typically, I think we all lean towards drama. But the genre formula matters a lot less than like the undertow of like other messages they're trying to like like move in, because you're like, what do they actually want me to take away from this film, right?
Exactly.
Exactly with that. I just recently rewatched Inception.
So good.
The first time I watched that movie, I thought it was an action film. And then I watched it again through a different lens, and I'm like, this is about ideas more than anything else. Yeah, it's got guns. Yeah, it's got explosions and everything. But the concept in and of itself is like we're talking about here, where media is trying to teach you something. It's about subverting your conscious mind and putting ideas beneath that.
Yeah, the unconscious.
Which is a lot of stuff that media is doing. It presents this cool, flashy story, but if you pay attention to the characters and the stories, there's something underneath. I think Avatar is the same way. James Cameron wanted to make an environmentalism movie. Maybe this isn't the best example because he's not terribly subtle.
No, he's not.
But
it's good.
You've got this blockbuster movie, but it has that underlying theme. It has that idea underneath that isn't just, guns are cool.
It's so true though. And the second movie, I feel like really like, if you haven't seen it yet, I suggest it, especially if you did like the first one.
It's about water conservation.
Yeah. Well, it helps a lot. It continues that underlying theme, but it also gives a lot of underlying themes to each character as well.
That's cool.
So we've been talking a little bit about drama and sci-fi. What are some other genres you guys really like favorites?
Oh gosh, I love the mystery ones, the
yes.
solving crimes or whatever.
Thrillers
Knives
are
Out
my
and
favorite.
Yeah.
Thrillers and horror movies, so good. Good.
I'm big on comedy. I love comedy. It's like one of those things where, especially if you have a go-to comedy movie where you can watch over and over again, it just puts you in a good mood. So I just love comedy. I need to laugh. I need to watch something. Throw it on. It's like instant gratification, I guess. It's not the best, but like, hey, I just need to watch something. I want to get in a good mood, so I'm going to turn it on. So comedy for me.
Comedy is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great comedy movies.
Oh,
And
yeah. You got a lot of
comedy is
options.
kind of leaking into every other genre now.
Oh, absolutely.
People have found out that you can have a blank film, whether it's a mystery or a drama or whatever, and have comedy on the side. And some people are better at that balance than others.
Oh, yeah. Like Marvel was really good, I think, during like, I don't know about it now. I haven't been seeing the recent ones. I feel bad. But that's like the I guess Endgame, stuff like that, where it's like a super serious movie, action all the time, and all of a sudden they throw in like quick little comedy, just to throw it in there,
Yeah.
Which they did, I thought, pretty good at.
No, yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say that like that Marvel formula was what made superhero genres popular. Like that whole that the whole formula was absolutely changed there, and it made even the like it was almost like, I think it was who's the actor for Titanic? Gosh dang, what's his name?
Leonardo
DiCaprio?
DiCaprio?
Yeah, I remember he was giving some other young actor advice, and he said, never touch a superhero movie. Just don't even touch them. Because it's like there's a whole trope of things that come with being in a superhero movie, which is why also you never see Leonardo DiCaprio in like any of them.
Yeah.
And that part of it is the Marvel formula that changed everything that no one else had ever seen before, and now it's like a mainstream like that's part of our common digestion of media.
Have you guys ever seen a movie where there's so many different genres that you're like, what is this genre movie? Like, Princess Bride is one of those.
Oh,
Absolutely.
So many different ones. And then also one of my favorite movies now is Stardust. I love the movie Stardust. It's also the same, where I can't put it in one genre. There's just so many different. It's like action, it's romance, it's drama, it's comedy, it's all of it in one movie, and so good. And I'm like, why don't we just make more movies like this, where we just can't, we don't have one genre. There's just a bunch of them in one little thing.
Yeah, the one,
so good.
The most recent one like that I can think of. The name is a little on the nose. It's called Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I was going to talk about that. Yeah.
It's not like the most clean family fun, but it's a very fun movie.
It won a lot of Oscars this year too, by the way, if you watch the Oscars.
Also, before you go into it, all right, I'm going to go on a soapbox real quick. It's a great movie. It is a very fun movie. The movie toys with the concept of nihilism a little bit and then doesn't fully commit all the way. So just don't. My brother doesn't listen to this. Don't be my brother. and be like, oh, this is a super cool new world view to look at. And it's like, it's a slight misunderstanding of nihilism and Nietzsche. That being said, it's a very fun movie. It's got a cool message. I just wouldn't necessarily do the thing where you're a kid and you adopt everything out of the movie and base yourself around it, because it does have slightly hazardous ramifications if not done with intelligence.
There we go.
But it's a spectacular film, and it's a wild ride that I didn't see coming at any point.
One of my new favorite movies, I would say, is A Man Called Otto. Have you guys seen that?
No. Is that with Tom Hanks?
Yeah, with Tom Hanks.
I didn't get to see it.
I actually really liked it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely got some adult themes, so just be careful. It's definitely not a kid's show. But it's got a lot of serious messages that I really enjoyed. A man battling with a depression after his wife has died, basically. And so it's a whole movie about that, and it's so good. And Tom Hanks does an amazing job. You know, it's Tom Hanks, right? So it's really, really good. So that one is one I suggest, and that's definitely one of my newer favorite movies.
Yeah. I love. I've always loved, and I feel like it kind of more people know about it now. But The Secret Life of Walter Mitty is probably
Oh my goodness,
one of my top 3 of all time.
So good.
It's. I remember I saw it in movie theaters. I went out. I just like with all my brothers and stuff. We all saw it. I loved it. And then now it's like huge. I mean, not huge, but a lot of people love it for the soundtrack, which I love it for the soundtrack. A lot of people love it because it inspires people to go travel the world and do all these things. And I love it just because the feeling I get when I watch it. And so right now, I could watch that movie so many times, and it still gives me the same feeling. I love I can sing every song from it and just go vibe with it. I can quote a lot of it. So I just love that movie right now for sure. It's my favorite, I think. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
I've been really struggling with like the more recent favoritism of films, just because as a kid it was really easy just to absorb media, and nowadays I feel like I have to. It's an investment, all right. Like this is my time. Don't waste my time. I don't want to waste my time with a bad movie or a bad like a worthless piece of media. And so I usually don't watch a lot of movies. In fact, when you mentioned that you don't watch the more recent Marvel stuff, I'm like, man, I wasn't doing that. Like even up till like the last little bit of Endgame or whatever, it's like that was the only couple of movies that I had seen in that time. Yeah. I get that it's a part of our culture. Like we're very involved in media, especially like at this school, BYU-Idaho. Like I remember telling people I wasn't a huge fan of Disney.
Don't say that around here.
I know. Yeah, no, you get like headhunter vibes. All right, like it's rough.
We'll cut that out of the podcast for you. Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah. And so like
just a reminder, listen to last week's episode about Disney.
Literally last week. I feel you. It's like it is like that. But that's the thing is like I don't know. Like I've definitely taken out like the classes that we've learned in like the department about like formulas and like the kind of media you used to digest. I'm like, Disney is very subversive and very manipulative. They got that emotional like connection to everyone. They've got that formula down.
It's true.
And so I think they're really dangerous, personally speaking. But that doesn't mean that no one else doesn't also do that. I love this stuff, right? Like the movies themselves, they're great. I just don't trust them. I'm conspiratorial like that. But anyway, besides that, I am all about that sci-fi stuff. So these days, I'm more into like stuff like Blade Runner. That's classic. And then Blade Runner 2049, of course, was like a great follow-up. Arrival, The Martian.
Have you seen Kingsman movies?
I have not, but I've watched a lot of the like
so good.
What do you call them? TikTok
Little clips.
Yeah.
The first two are good.
That's true.
didn't even know
That's
they
true.
made
I
the
haven't
third
seen
one.
the third one, so I can't say.
If
but-
you like Kingsman for the technology, don't watch the third Kingsman.
Oh, well, that's why I
simple.
watch the Kingsman movies. It's because the way they produce it.
Yeah,
So cool.
It's a prequel, and it goes back
Oh,
to
that's what I thought.
it goes back in time, so they don't have the cool like digital technology. It still has the same formula. It
I thought
still
you were talking about
feels-
like the way they produce the movie.
No.
Oh, okay. So that's still the same style.
Visually very good. The way that they act and the way that they do things is very much so the same. The fight scenes are still spectacularly choreographed, where they just it's sort of like the Batman Arkham series where they go, hey, what a man physically can do and predict in a fight isn't important. What's important is that it looks freaking sick. And I love that approach to it. It just doesn't have the fancy gadgets because it takes place in like World War I.
Yeah.
Pretty cool time period.
That's
though.
cool,
It's
though.
really cool.
I want to see it now.
You
wanted to see
started
it
off
before,
talking bad about it, but now I want to watch
Oh
it.
gosh, you changed my mind.
You guys were talking about the gadgets. I wanted to let you know the gadgets weren't there, but it's still a good movie, and Rasputin isn't as big of a thing as the media made him. And I was very disappointed.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
poor Colton.
that reminds me of that like I don't know, maybe I just was grown up into this, but like Jimmy Neutron, that whole thing was amazing. And honestly, I undervalued it as a kid. Like I just liked it because
So
it was a
good.
goofy cartoon. But looking, like, if you go back and watch any like episode, I swear to you, Hugh Neutron is a genius character. That character is
Genius kid.
insane.
He is.
He is insane.
He's
I don't
so
know.
good.
It's so good. Every
It's
character
funny
is so
though.
good.
Like you think back, and TV has changed even quite a bit since we were kids. You know, like for me, I remember going back and like when I was in high school and watching just cable, right? Like Netflix wasn't huge. Like people were still ordering DVDs. I'm aging myself a little bit, but
Blockbuster. I was around with Blockbuster.
Blockbuster, that kind of stuff. And now it's like all streaming services. And
Yeah.
like basically if you're paying for all the streaming services, you're paying just as much as you used to with cable. In fact, maybe more than that.
But hear me out. You can watch it whenever you want, and you're not gonna miss the episode.
That's true. That is very true. You can just watch it in your free time and you don't have to worry about like recording it or doing things like that through your TiVo or whatever. TiVo.
Oh, man.
But it's changed quite a bit in our lifetime, I would say.
Absolutely. Especially with the change of animation styles and stuff like that.
yeah. Mhm.
Like going to
Oh,
3D. Everything's 3D now. Nothing's
man.
2D. It's like
yes.
totally different.
Yeah, you were just talking about Jimmy Neutron, which, as far as I'm aware, was one of the first 3D
3D
animated shows.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to my roommate a lot recently about that kind of stuff. He wants to be an illustrator animator, and he was taken into the two forms of animation, and he's like, if I ever go into animation, I'm doing 3D because you make the model and then you dance them around,
Yeah.
whereas 2D animation is faster on drawing each cell, but you have to draw each cell.
Yeah.
And then with 3D, it's they can produce so many more shows so much faster.
It's so true. And I don't know, like when Avatar, the first one came out, James Cameron's movie, when he like developed that new technique of like tracking the ball, like the morph suits with the balls on them
Yeah, what's
and
that
stuff.
called? Is it,
Why can't I think of the name of it?
Oh, I
tracking?
could have told
Motion
you.
But
capture?
motion capture. So when he like
Mocap.
started that, oh my gosh, everything changed. Like so much more things were produced, like way faster than they were before. And so now we're just getting all of this 3D content. It's so cool. So I just had to mention that because James Cameron has really made a big difference in that world for sure.
I think building off of streaming services and talking about genres and cartoons and everything like that, the good thing that the streaming services do offer is that there's something for everyone. Like you
That's
can get
true.
one streaming service, but that streaming service doesn't just offer like if I think about Disney doesn't just offer Disney movies. They offer
Yeah.
like more
Discover.
than that. Yeah, and they also offer like different genres, and so there's so much there for what you're getting. And then if you don't like that, hey, go to HBO, go to Netflix. Like it seems kind of bad, but like there are really a lot of options. And as soon as you want to be done with it, you can be done with it. So it's not like you're totally not in control. You're in control, so you choose what you want to watch, and you get what you want and what you pay for. So
It's
I
true.
do like streaming
And
services.
with streaming services, they have a lot of them have like a pause feature, so you can be like, hey, just pause this for a month. I want to pay for Hulu this month so I can watch Steven Universe or whatever.
I
right?
didn't know
that. So yeah, you can pause it for like a month and then go back to Netflix or whatever, and then you
that's
can do that
cool.
with Hulu as well, which is so nice because then you don't have to continue to pay for them if you're not using them in that month.
Yeah,
So-
that's really good.
So as far as when it comes to streaming, I've seen a lot of like remakes recently with Disney, and I've also
man.
seen like, sequels and stuff. But with remakes specifically, Disney's been doing that a lot recently.
yeah.
And the live ones are great, right? But also it's the same story.
Yeah.
You know?
Like,
and
what
it's
else are you
like,
expecting?
Can we
kind
get
of?
like new movies that are different, that are something like a completely different story? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of more sequels. Like, how many sequels does Shrek have at this point, right? On top of that, how many spin-offs does Shrek have, right?
This is the double-edged sword of that formula we were talking about earlier, because it's a great formula, but it's a formula.
Well, and I hope listeners know too, when we say formula, we're not derogatizing. We're not trying to like say, oh, that's a bad thing. We love formulas. In all media, we go to media for the formula they give us. That's just true. And that's why we consume them. So it's not a bad thing necessarily that things have a formula.
Right.
But that also means that in order to change someone's life, in order to like impact them with media, you have to use the formula perfectly and then also
Add more.
Like
add
build onto
something
it, yeah.
in there,
Yeah.
right? That sneaks in. That's
Exactly.
like, that hits you a little different, that catches you off guard, but not in such a drastic way where it's like the entire thing is unedible. Does that make sense? You have to have them consuming it first to get them in.
Right. The formula is the skeletal structure, and you
Absolutely,
can
yeah.
get away with just throwing some muscle tissue on there, but if you don't flesh it out and actually create a body of work, it's going to fall flat.
Yeah, that's like the difference between what I view as movies is like there are those that change your life, and then there are roller coaster movies. And there's a roller coaster movie, you get on the roller coaster, you have fun the whole time. You're in the movie theater the whole time. It's very enjoyable, and then you get off the roller coaster, and then you go on with your life. Nothing changed.
Yeah.
Right? That's a roller coaster movie. That's a lot of what Marvel was doing for a little bit, in my opinion. Is like the great formulas, very fun. The whole time I'm watching the movie, I'm engaged, I'm very interested. And then I leave it behind for the rest of my life and forget like anything interesting about it.
Because
Because
you don't feel like you have to come back to it at all. Like it's just done.
Do you
Nothing
guys
changed my life in there.
like the
Yeah.
fact that all the Marvel movies, like, they connect to each other in a way? Do you like that, or is it a little bit too much? Because to me,
I used to.
I feel
Yeah,
like
me
it's
too. I
too
used to.
much. Because now they're doing it with like series and stuff too,
Yeah.
like show series and stuff. And I'm like, dude, I don't have like 50 hours to watch this entire season just so I can get this one little thing in this other show. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think it worked. I think in terms of like marketing, I think it was perfect because you locked people in. If they cared at all about any of the parts, then they suddenly got sucked into this whole universe of like movies and shows. So I think it worked. Saying that I personally like it, I hate that. I don't like being stuck in the thing. I like to be able to like grow and change and like think new things. But I think it was perfect in terms of like strategy and art form. I guess you could say they mastered a formula really well, and now they have us really well right now.
Yeah.
I think that's my personal opinion.
What I think is funny about that is that the reason why people didn't like comic books for the longest time is that you don't know where to start, and there's too many different contingencies that you have to read to understand what's going on. And now the movies, which were the casualization where it's like, hey, you just got to watch a couple of movies, has become the same dang thing.
It's
You've
true.
got 10 years of more than 10 years of movies. You've got TV shows that weren't canon, but now are canon because of No Way Home and a bunch of other movies. And it's just funny watching what used to be this massive barrier of entry become kind of a culture. And I agree. I don't think it's great. I think that the Star Wars Disney has done a little bit better of a job where they will introduce characters, but they introduce them. You don't necessarily, like, my parents are watching The Mandalorian and they haven't seen all of Clone Wars and they're okay. Like, there's obviously a lot of enjoyment that you can get from having seen all of it, but you don't necessarily need to have seen the 7 seasons of the cartoons in order to you have to have watched Rebels now too.
And Boba Fett.
Oh no.
That's what I'm saying. It's getting too much. Like, I miss the days where I could just sit down and watch a new show and it's its own thing. Like, I can just sit down and be like, okay, this is its new movie. It's a new thing. It's on its own. I didn't have to watch 50 other movies to understand what's going on in this movie. Yeah. And I miss that, like, I guess that's one reason why I liked A Man Called Otto, because that's what it was. It was just, it's one movie and that's all it is. I don't have to know anything else or any sort of background. It's one movie, which is really nice. But at the same time, I do kind of like spin-offs sometimes, depending on what it is. I haven't seen the newest Shrek spinoff, Puss in Boots. I haven't seen any of the Puss in Boots, but I've heard it's really good.
It's very good.
Yeah. And sometimes there's those characters that you connect with that you're like, I really want to see more about this like side character. And then they turn into the main character, which is really cool.
Movie,
Yeah.
I want Donkey's movie.
All right,
I want Donkey's movie.
We got a hot take.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves here, guys.
Hear me out. Young Sheldon, Planet Sheen.
Oh no. Oh gosh.
Ton of spin-offs. Shouldn't exist. Minions,
You're right.
The Minions movies,
You're right.
They highlight characters that don't have stories to tell. When you write a story, there are characters that are supporting characters. The reason why Puss in Boots works is because Puss in Boots as an entity is a protagonist of his own movie. Donkey. When you think about what is...
The way you said it just made it be like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about.
When you think about Donkey as a character, what does he do? He is a herald. He operates around Shrek. When he's by himself, he's in a cage. He doesn't have this self-driving purpose.
But maybe that's what the movie would be about. Getting himself into the place where he can get himself out of the cage.
How did Donkey end up in that swamp, Let's hear about him. Let's hear about him.
It's not impossible, and this is what I wrote, is that like when I think about, spin-offs or sequels, it's never not possible. It's just that we just happen to have a lot of bad examples.
Yeah.
We just sometimes it in theory should work. We just don't have it implemented the right way most of the time, right? Or a lot of the times for many cases, right? Like sometimes it works and it's fine, and sometimes it doesn't. I am on the it's good if you want it to be.
Both
if
ways,
you make
kind
it
of.
good.
Yeah. It's just such a tempting situation. I'm using that Donkey as a situation because Puss in Boots worked, but like I feel like Donkey, when you watch the Shrek movies, probably had more fans for him than Puss in Boots, right? Right. So like, you have an instant audience. If the Donkey movie's good or bad, you're gonna have people go see it. That's the funny thing because they like Donkey. They don't care.
It's true.
Like maybe they like Donkey and they want to know where he came from. So it's like that's probably why some of these spin-offs work because it's an easy money grab and people like these characters. But then the sad thing is sometimes those movies ruin that character for that person.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do that.
What I'm saying is that what I think makes those characters great isn't what makes a good central character.
They're good supportive,
I think
right?
they are incredible in their roles. I think they're a great character. I just think that, like, you wouldn't want a show. I mean, I would, but you wouldn't necessarily want an Alec Guinness Obi-Wan show because he's older. He can't fight as much. It's going to be a lot of him just going around going, if you were to do this in a different way, everything would be more in tune with the Force. And I would want that because I'm a Star Wars fan and I'm a nerd as heck and I love Alec Guinness. But a general audience is going to take a look at that isn't as invested. As a standalone movie without context, that's a bad movie.
Yeah, it would be like Old Man Wolverine, but Old Man Obi-Wan.
Yeah, except it wouldn't be as
really slow moving
as Old Man Wolverine. And if you take... Logan's a great film. So I don't want to dissect that one because Logan's a great film and it has its own likes. But like specifically, I guess I'll use Minions because I'm using a straw man example because it's a terrible movie.
It really is.
The main characters don't speak a discernible language.
It's true. It's very true.
But that's a good example of a money grab. Like they knew kids love these little things that just don't say anything. You know what I mean?
Well,
and
you
that's
say
why
that,
they shouldn't do it.
Okay, but I'm going to remind you that we just talked about Mandalorian. Widely successful. Guy says barely anything at all. right?
That's
There's a
true.
lot that can be said masterfully if you just do it the right
Body
way.
action,
Right.
and
True.
whatever. Yeah.
That's true.
It's true, but also it would be nice to hear the guy talking, right?
We all love
absolutely.
Pedro
like
I'm not
Pascal.
saying
on a
that.
more
Right,
regular
yeah.
basis, right? Like I feel like if I had some more dialogue, I'd understand the character a little bit better,
Of
right?
course.
And
yeah.
that's the whole reason why Henry Cavill left The Witcher is because
Oh yeah.
they were like, hey, I'd like to explain what my character's thinking. And they went, say the F word and swing the sword.
Oh man.
It's true though. It's true though. There's a
Then he
lot of
tried to go
shows
back
out
to
there like
Superman.
that.
these studios. I
Yeah.
will say that when I think of like a sequel that had opportunity
Mm-hmm.
but didn't, or like a spinoff, was Kronk's New Groove. All right.
Ah, yes.
Oh, I love
Like,
Kronk too.
I
Kronk is
love
great.
Kronk so much, so much, so much. When you said Planet Sheen, it kind of sparked that thing
Oh,
in me
yeah.
where I'm like, no, I love that character, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that Kronk actually had potential. The
Mhm.
problem was they gave him zero arc in that
Mhm.
movie,
Yeah.
where
True.
he never overcame anything. He just had
Yeah.
issues in his life.
Yeah.
And he had kind of an arc, but it's forgettable. It's not like a real thing. It's like kind of a.
I can't even
Really-
remember it.
I
Yeah.
think his arc was that you need to work with people.
I think it was that you need to focus. Like you can't just give everything to everybody, make everybody happy. I think it was a little bit of that.
See, but you bring a good point here. Are cartoons now being made for mature audiences,
Yeah.
right? Like, are they making them now for all of us to, like, as adults to understand?
kind of.
And then is it going too far in that area because cartoons are for kids, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I wouldn't say it's always the case, but like right now in our world, it's been really changing in a way that, like, you know, some of these cartoons, like for example, anime, aren't necessarily for kids.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and
Definitely
so
not.
it's becoming harder for parents to understand the difference between, is this a kid's show or is this an adult's show?
Yeah.
You know, and it's almost like they're going to have to figure out even more, have to look in deeper before they can let kids watch any show at this
Yeah.
point. And that's very difficult for people who are parents. I'm not a parent yet, but like that's going to be hard
Make
when I
some
do have
decisions,
kids,
yeah.
you know? So I don't know. Do you guys think that's going a little too far with the maturity levels with cartoons?
Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that adult cartoons are really cool. I should specify. When I say adult cartoons, I'm not talking about Family Guy. I'm talking about like the DC animated stuff is so much better than any
I've
DC
heard that, yeah.
actual like live action movie. They have some really good stories to tell. Not all of them are great. Controversial take, Flashpoint Paradox isn't as great. But there are some really good ones like Under the Red Hood, The Killing Joke. They have really good stories. And Savannah, you might like this. Very few of them are sequential. You can just watch them.
Oh, that's nice.
I think
That's really nice.
besides
I actually do
Injustice.
really like DC too. Like I know that's not a popular opinion, but I love DC a lot, and I actually really like seeing some of the background for the characters. So I think some of those animated series would be very interesting to me.
I actually just do not like any of the Marvel animated stuff. The
It's
live
not as
action
good.
worked really well.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the inverse for DC.
Yeah.
Where like everything they do live action is kind of like hit or miss.
I don't know. I like the new Batman movie.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like
Oh,
Batman,
me too.
grandstand,
They nailed
just
Batman down.
overall, they've got that.
Even
It
Ben
works.
Affleck's Batman wasn't
Yeah.
that bad.
Yeah,
People
no,
say,
every
yeah.
single. I feel like almost every iteration of Batman has
It's
at
hard
least
to
been
screw Batman
enjoyable,
up.
right? But anything super, no,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
they don't do that. But animation wise, and like movie, like cartoon, anything like that, like they do great. They do great work there.
Yeah. They tell some really compelling stories that children should not watch
Yeah,
because
exactly.
you have to watch Robin getting beaten to death by a crowbar by the Joker.
Yeah,
Like, all
probably.
right, son, we're turning this off. You know?
Yeah.
Which goes into what? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that anime is definitely like a good example of that too.
There's just so much to work off of with anime and I feel like, because I wasn't huge into anime, but I think within this past year I tried watching Vinland Saga, which I loved. I think it has one of the best rated IMDb or IMBD, whatever.
IMDb. Yeah.
Episodes of all time. Like there's like Breaking Bad. You see like all these like big time stuff, and then all of a
yeah.
sudden there's like Vinland Saga. I was like, what is this show? And so I watched it, and so like the last episode is like one of the best episodes of like all time, and I loved
Oh,
it. And
that's
so there's stuff like that where you can't really have kids watch that, but it's in like cartoons, animated stuff. It's there for adults. You got like Bob's Burgers. You got I heard BoJack Horseman is kind of good. I've never watched it, but I've heard that's
That's
thing.
adult.
I don't
That's
know.
very adult. and
Adult
so-
There
cartoons,
are
like
people who like that.
yeah, there are people who like it. For me, like I don't know. I'm not a fan of Family Guy. I'm not a fan of
neither.
like American Dad or South Park or anything like that. I just feel like it's not necessarily like spirit inviting. You know
Oh,
what I
yeah.
mean?
No,
like
yeah.
It's like the
it's-
inverse of wholesome.
it's- the inverse of wholesome. And so for me, like, I know there's a lot of people on campus that like it too, but I just am not a big fan of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's just
why
not my
there's something
thing.
for everyone. That's
There's-
one of those things
yeah.
that we've
Exactly.
talked about, you know.
There's a food pyramid, right? At the very tippity top, you got like a 1% of sugar in your diet, right? And that's your adult cartoons.
Go find it, yeah.
Just nibble on that and never touch it again
I
because
do
it's not
like
worth
the
your time.
deeper themes in cartoons that are coming right now, though.
yeah.
Like
Yes.
like Steven Universe, for example. If you haven't seen Steven Universe, I love it. So good. But there are a lot of like deep themes in that show. But it's also a fun cartoon that kids can watch, and they're not gonna like. The deep themes are not going to be so deep that the kids are, going to be influenced and stuff like that. But I love that show. I think it's got a lot of really cool themes in it. But yeah, I don't know. That's just one example.
Well, and that's a good example of like a show with deep themes that's age appropriate, I would
Yeah.
say, right? And
Yeah.
I think that older cartoons had a habit of doing that very well, where they would like, this is a kid's cartoon, but if you're an adult,
You'll
this
like
means
it
a
too.
lot more to
My
you.
Little Pony started that, I think.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Avatar: The Last Airbender, by the way. Just
Yeah,
slide that in there,
I'm
yeah.
actually watching that right now.
For the first time?
Yeah, for the first time. So
Oh my
I'm
It's a
really
great
excited.
example of a show
Yeah.
that like we watched as kids, I guess. But like you could totally watch it now and it's totally fine.
It's
Oh,
really
yeah.
interesting.
It's
I love
better.
it.
It's
I'm in the
better
first
when you're-
season
I
right
need
now.
to go through
So
and watch it again.
I think
so good.
anyone who's followed this podcast for a decent amount of time just gasped in shock that Savannah hasn't been an avid fan of Avatar.
So my boyfriend, he was talking to me about it the other day, and I was like, yeah, I haven't really seen it. Like I saw a few episodes or whatever, and he's like, okay, well, you need to see the whole thing. And I was like, you know what? All right, we just finished Steven Universe. Let's watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, and
You can get
it's
through it pretty quick.
really good. It's really really good.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what we're currently binging. And speaking of binging, that is something we do nowadays.
It is.
And it's not something we've really talked about yet. What do you guys think about binging? Because sometimes, I don't know, for me, when it comes to like Stranger Things, and they like drop a whole season, I'm like, okay, I'm binging that entire season
Yep.
within like 2 days, right?
Yeah,
And then I have to wait like a whole year and a half, maybe 3 years before I get the new season.
Yeah.
Right. But what do you think about that binge culture?
Yeah, that's something new that's come with streaming services. You'd never have somebody go, "Oh, I'm not watching Friends. I'm waiting until they release it all on DVD." That's not a thing that has happened until it was instant. As soon as the season's over, you can watch it all together back to back without ads. And I think it's a good thing and a bad thing. Because one thing is that they don't have to pace themselves for television anymore. And television pacing, what you have to do, how many episodes they order, how many seasons they order, and cutting it for TV time slots is horrific for creativity. Some good has come out of it. But when you build it around those ad spots and everything, you can, when you go back and watch things that were made for TV, you see those moments where it's like, bing, and then it like goes dark
The
and
laugh
everything,
and
and then it
the-
comes
yeah.
back up.
To be continued.
And it's like, oh, you had to put those stingers in there to make sure that people stayed watching and stayed invested, which in a way was good because it created drama in every single episode.
But it's not needed now.
It's not needed now, which is also kind of a detriment because think about how much of a show you forget because you watch it all together. Because media isn't supposed to be as long form as watching an entire season in one sitting, there are details and minute things that get lost when it becomes just sort of, instead of a finely crafted episode, it becomes a sort of big meat slab of content, which is why I do like that they still do weekly releases with a lot of the streaming shows. And I think that binging culture kind of, it can cheapen a show if not done responsibly.
You see, you say that, but for me, some of the shows that I binge are literally shows I binge over and over and over again because of that. Because of that. Because I like to see those little moments where the characters are growing. And so I go back and rewatch it over and over and over again. Jane the Virgin's one of those. I watch it. And when I'm finished with it, I watch it again because it's just so much character development in all of the characters, not just the main one, but all of them grow. And so yeah, I don't know. For me, I like being able to binge it over and over and over again and get
Gotcha.
more new things out of it. But I get what you're saying because it's not necessarily the healthiest to sit and binge a 150-hour show over and over and over
Not
again.
exactly.
The question makes
You know?
me think about the concept of like, has binging existed before media like that we have today? Is there a form of it that existed at least? And I would say some of the closer things that we have, first off, that comes to mind is just like watching TV, period. There are people, to this day, I'm pretty sure, who still just leave the TV on in their rooms and it's just playing commercials for the most part.
time.
But it's like, it's just ongoing, just media. In a way that's similar to binging, they just don't care about any of the formulas or any of the content. It's just as long as it's attention grabbing or stimuli, they let it on. And that's an example, I guess you could say, but it's a bad example because, like Savannah pointed out, one of the purposes of binging is to really enthrall yourself with a system or a formula.
Yeah,
that's what I think it is.
We
and that's
talked
fine.
about that like weekly formula, right? And how it used to be on TV. But you know what's changed? It's not just the streaming services, but there's also still that weekly thing going on in YouTube. If you think about it, like we've just changed the way that we view things. Like YouTube is now our episodic thing. And, you know what I'm saying?
That's true.
It's so true.
That's
And I do that with Minecraft like so much. There's this whole like Minecraft server that I watch, Hermitcraft. I've obsessed with that on YouTube, and so I'm watching new episodes all the time. And the problem is now I've watched all of these different creators, and now I have to pick specific creators because I don't have time as a college student. I don't have time to watch everybody's episodes, so now I have to like focus on which ones I want to watch and which ones I just can't, and then I'm gonna have to miss out on right now. And then during the summer, I'm gonna catch up on all of it.
Yeah, that's a great example, actually.
I just think binging is like, it's just like one of those skills that, it depends on what you're watching. I could watch something and I could totally sit down and watch it, but then there's like, I don't know. I feel like binging has made us more impatient in general. Kind of like we want it now, you know what I mean? Kind of, that's like our society as a whole right now. We want things to come quicker and we want things like now. But I got a taste of like the whole weekly episode thing with like The Last of Us recently came out. And I loved that show. Right now, Ted Lasso is a great show. And I'm watching that week to week. And it's like, man, I got so used to having everything I wanted handed to me. And then now these good shows that I'm back onto, I have to wait a week. I'm like, gosh, I wish I could have it right now. You know what I mean? So it's kind of just made us more impatient. Like we want everything right now. But in reality, I like the week build up because you're like building up to that day. Let's have a watch party. Let's sit down and watch it with friends. It's happening, and then you got to wait a whole another week. So,
oh my gosh! You just brought back childhood memories of Teen Titans.
Oh
my
yeah.
gosh, man. My family, we would dance and sing the theme song every time, and we'd get together like it's Teen Titans time. It's Friday night. We all get in the living room. We just start watching it together as a family. That's
so good.
It was a formula we made up because it was so good to us.
Your family formula.
Yeah.
I just want to take a moment to promote something. I have an advertisement for all of you college students here. There is a class called Mass Media and Society.
Mass Media and Society.
So good.
Take that class. It doesn't matter what major you're in. That class is so central to how we interact with society and with media as a whole. If you have elective credits available, take that class. It is really eye-opening. It teaches you a lot of stuff about how you perceive media and what media is telling you. We talked about it a little bit earlier where you have to ask yourself the question, what is this telling me? And it sort of teaches you how to build these knowledge towers and use them to get the most out of your media, and more importantly, make sure that media isn't manipulating you. It isn't creating that binge culture.
Very true.
It helps you set up delayed gratification for yourself and make sure that the marketing teams and the engineering teams that are scientifically trying to figure out how to remove your ability to say no to watching their stuff.
It's
and
very true.
That sounds conspiratorial, but it literally is them trying
marketing.
to
It's money,
for
marketing
your conscious
101,
decision making.
And people wonder why we study communication, right? Because we literally are insiders to that kind of knowledge.
It's what we're learning how to do.
And, you know, speaking of knowledge and insider knowledge that we know as communication majors, Colton actually has a little bit of a stupid hard movie quiz is what he called it.
It's gotten less hard because I decided not to ask you guys how much a roll of film used to cost in the 1960s. First, This is a two-parter. Can you tell me what the first narrative film that was released was? We all know that the first thing that was ever shown was the train, and everybody tells that little fun joke about the train trying to run everybody over, and everybody freaked out thinking they were going to get hit by a train, and that's not true. It was an over-exaggeration of how people felt. But what was the first narrative film? It had the title, it had a plot.
Was it the one about the gold? Is it Gold Rush? Gold?
All right, so that's a guess for Gold Rush.
What about that one about the moon or something?
One about the moon.
I got
Any
nothing.
idea? It is A Trip to the Moon.
Oh,
Okay,
let's go.
A trip to the moon. Okay.
Do you want to know? This isn't a question.
Isn't it like
it's just really funny.
French or Italian?
It is
It's
French.
French, yeah.
It's French.
Super interesting.
Do you want to know how they get to the moon?
Oh, tell me about it.
They load astronauts into a giant bullet.
Oh yeah, and they shoot it. Yeah,
into the moon,
and they land there, and it's super. All the colors weird, and it's super. It's kind of a scary movie. I've
You know
watched
why
it.
the
It's kind of
color
an
is
odd
weird?
movie.
You know why the
Well, it's
color is
because
weird?
that was like technically that was the first real color movie, but it was actually faked. Like it wasn't really.
Yeah, so what they did was each little cell of the film, they painted.
painted it.
They
yeah.
hand painted
So
it
incredibly
to make
tedious.
it colorful, but so impressive.
Wow.
It's
So
really cool.
impressive
It's
and really cool.
Yep.
That's actually
Uh,
wild.
It's a funny film. I
It's
watched
pretty
it.
short
It's-
too, right?
It's
It's
pretty
not-
short. If you want to watch it, this is the second part of the question. If you wanted to see it, where can you watch the first film, A Trip to the Moon, now?
I know it's on a streaming service. I came across it. I'm gonna say, just throwing it out there, Prime, Amazon Prime. It's on there.
All
Probably.
right. Any other guesses?
I think that's a good guess.
Yeah, I'm
Amazon
gonna
Prime.
third that.
It is correct. Amazon Prime and HBO.
HBO. Okay, I think I watched it
HBO
on
works,
HBO
yep.
actually, but I just remember. Okay, cool.
Yeah. It's a fun, short little film. You should absolutely take a look at it. It's not like good by today's standards,
Yeah.
but it's fun.
When you put into the mindset of like these people were doing, like this was a big deal. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so when you put it that way, yeah.
Similarly to the first narrative film, what was the first television program aired?
I mean, I know this is the wrong
Mm-hmm.
one. I was going to say I Love Lucy, but I know that's wrong.
Oh, yeah, no.
I know it's wrong, but it's good.
That is one of the earlier ones.
Yeah.
Andy Griffith, because I love it, but I know it's probably not.
Let me give you guys a hint. It was a British program.
Oh,
British. Is it something we should know?
No.
Really? No, like,
Then I
even
wouldn't know.
remotely.
I
Yeah.
probably won't know.
Probably, yeah.
It is not Doctor Who like I was trying to lead you guys.
it's been going.
It was
since-
called
That does sound like it could be Doctor Who, though.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it could be, but it isn't. It was a show called The Queen's Messenger.
Okay.
And I tried to look up more, but nobody wanted to tell me anything about it.
First
So-
official show though.
Yeah.
That's like actual show.
first television program, because they weren't called television shows, because they were, even though they were more of like a stage show, which you had with like the Jack Benny program, which is one of my favorite shows growing up. I was old growing up. Anyway, what was the first film to use CGI, computer-generated imagery?
Spy Kids 3.
Oh my god!
Is that right?
No, definitely not.
genius.
No.
CGI, though?
CGI, yeah.
You said first TV show?
First movie.
Movie.
Is it Star Wars?
That's close.
So
Star
big.
Wars came out a few years after this one. That's a hint.
Oh.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. I believe it was the same decade.
Holy. Okay.
Star Wars came out after that.
I'll give you guys another hint. There has been a recent reboot show about this show.
Um,
And they have one of the coolest versions of heart-shaped box. That might be even too much of a hint if anyone's seen it.
it probably should have been.
I don't think I've seen it.
Okay. The first movie to use CGI was Westworld, which
Oh,
showed a bunch of
okay.
robotic people.
Yeah,
and they
yeah,
had
yeah,
to, yeah. The Westworld show. I didn't watch it.
It
But-
got cut down pretty quick. It's
Yeah.
not going on
They-
anymore.
They have a version of heart-shaped box that's on YouTube, and it's really nice.
Well, as I've said before, we're communication majors, and we could probably talk about movies and TV
As is evidence, yes.
forever. But
Forever.
I hope we mentioned a few things that you could check out yourself, and check out some of those new shows that we talked about. You've been listening to The Spot, a production of BYU-Idaho Radio. Today's hosts were me, Savannah Bewley.
Hayden Hahn.
Nathan Andersen.
And I'm Colton Scholl.
The views and opinions of this podcast are not that of BYU-Idaho Radio or the university and are solely the opinions of the hosts. This episode was edited by me, Savannah Bewley, and Brinley Fowler. Producers were the hosts with supervision by Brandon Isle and Natalia Hepworth. Our theme music is Finding Happiness by DJ Quads and The Perpetual Ticking of Time by Artificial Music. To listen to more episodes of The Spot, like and follow us on social media or visit our website, byui.edu/radio, and click podcasts. Be sure to subscribe to the BYU-Idaho Radio podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get podcasts. And also leave a review of the show and leave a comment on what we should talk about next.